This is Build It Baby, the show for big ideas, brave pivots, and bold next chapters. So let's do it. Let's build it, baby. Welcome to Build It Baby. I'm your host, Penelope Bent, and today I'm sitting down with David Roth, a seasoned leader and trust builder in every sense of the word. So let's build it, baby. I have found that leadership is one of the most important elements of any build. So let me ask you this. What makes a leader truly worth following? To answer that question, I knew exactly who to turn to. My friend David Roth is CRO and sales management consultant. Over the years, I've had the privilege of partnering with David as a member of his recruiting team, which definitely gave me a firsthand view. So today, we're going to dig into the heart of leadership, what makes it real and what makes it lasting, and what makes people want to follow you. Well, David, welcome to Build It Baby. I'm so thrilled to have you here. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Great to speak to you today.
So you and I both know leadership's more than just a title. So I'd like to talk about what truly makes it work. If you could share with us, starting with the difference between management and leadership. I think that that's a very confusing line between those two roles. How do they work together? How do you blend those two pieces?
Yeah, well, I think two different and unique aspects of being a part of an organization, leadership versus management. Managers are tactical. I think they know how to do certain things in an organization. It's important to have them. It's important to be able to have people that are in that position to run the business. But there are different characteristics. I mean, you can be a manager and a great leader as well, and you can be a great leader who's a great manager. But it's about how do you work on those specific traits and characteristics in parts of the organization where people feel like they can follow an individual who's a leader and work for folks that are managers that can also be great leaders. You know, leadership characteristics, qualities, certain things that I think people want to aspire to and want to follow can be very complicated, but it can also be the most important part of an organization. Most individuals want to follow great leaders. So we can certainly get into the details of what makes up a great leader as an organization and, you know, what kind of characteristics those leaders have. We see them in the business world often. And certainly managers who get promoted into certain roles, all of a sudden they're assumed leadership roles that they have to figure out. How do they motivate their teams? How do they instill confidence in the organization? And how do they eventually become great leaders as managers?
Well, I think it's really important as folks that are wanting to move up the ladder and get into management. I think it's so important for them to look at the aspects of the overall leadership style, what style they're going to develop as they, move through the management process. So, great information, and thanks so much for kind of clarifying the differences between the two. So I've watched you step into organizations, take ownership, scale these teams. So my question is, when a leader like yourself is walking into a new environment, do you have a particular tactic or, a number one skill you believe matters most in those first 60 or 90 days? How do you approach that when you're just stepping in with a new organization?
Yeah, I think coming in as a new leader in an organization, it's really important to have, three aspects of those activities and tactics to be able to instill some sense of confidence in the organization as you start to take over. You need to have a clear vision, a clear strategy and vision and direction where you're taking the team, the organization, what kind of culture you're creating. An ability to communicate very effectively and openly is absolutely critical as well. That is one of the aspects of being either a great manager or a great leader that's going to be pretty important as you grow in your organization and in your career. The willingness to be able to listen, to communicate effectively, to be able to create an organization that's open and honest with the things that are working and the things that may not be working. And I think certainly having a level of accountability within the organization, but also holding yourself accountable to the things that you're going to do, the things that you say, that will eventually create and instill a tremendous amount of confidence in the organization, the people that work for you.
Well, yes, and so many people today are paying really close attention to the company culture. It's become such a big focus for people. So as you have talked, about the openness and clarity, I keep thinking that feels exactly like what the market is asking for right now. Do you involve people in the build as part of your leadership style? Because it certainly sounds like it's part of actually shaping the culture while you're leading.
Yeah, I think it's really critical to articulate very early on the vision, the strategy that you're putting into place. Folks want to be part of a growing organization that has a clear vision and direction, but they also want to feel that they're part of helping to create that vision, to be part of the process. I think it's important when you're communicating as a good leader, as a great leader, to be able to solicit feedback, to be able to get input from people in the organization. And part of the process is really being able to have those solid one-on-one meetings, not just with your own team, but the other parts of the organization that support your team. You really want to get a good understanding of what drives those people, what metrics they're measured by, what does success mean for them, to be able to put yourself in a position to set up for success. If there's openness, there's communication, there's an understanding that we're all on the same page and we're all pulling towards the same goal, that's really where ultimately you want to be. But the only way to really achieve that is to really have very good communication early on and really have some great conversations around what does success mean to them and how can they be part of that overall success, bringing them along for the journey.
When you step into an organization with an established team and you begin your discovery phase, how do you approach a situation where perhaps a team member isn't aligned with the team's mindset or the direction that you're headed? What is a strategy? What's your strategy for handling that type of a situation effectively?
Yeah, I think it's different. Each organization culturally will be a little different. Some of it depends on how you came in as a leader. Or did you come in to be able to build and scale an organization? Did you come in because you replaced someone because they didn't potentially, work out in that role? Did you come in an organization that's very small that just needs to scale from, near zero? So some of this is going to be contingent on that. I think most often you'll run into people who are willing to share the opportunity to talk to a new leader and share ideas. You do gauge personalities, the types of individuals that you're going to be working with or managing. And that's also part of the process. I think getting to know someone and understanding what drives them individually, what's working in the organization and what isn't. Sometimes I refer to it as those meetings where I ask, tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. What's working, what's not. What would you like to see changed? What's holding you back from ultimately being as successful as you could be? I think asking probing questions like that, trying to get down to the level of understanding where people can express to you what are they seeing in the organization and what could they potentially bring up as ideas and contribute to the overall success. Many people are very willing to share their ideas and share their concepts about how do you make the organization and the culture more effective.
You're really describing an inclusion-based style or strategy, if you will, which obviously creates, a collective ownership, kind of a shared understanding across the team. Is that by intentional design? Is that part of what your style is as a leader?
Yeah, my own experience, my first 100 days, let's say, in an organization, it's all about those first meetings, sitting down with every member of the organization and just having a very open conversation about, tell me what's happening. Tell me what's going on in the organization from your perspective and what's working, what's not. And it's really not about calling things out or calling people out. It's really about just trying to understand from their perspective what's working, what can be done to be more efficient, more effective. Are there ideas that these individuals have? Do they aspire to do other things in their career? Do they feel they have the opportunity to be successful or opportunity to climb in their career or do other things that will add more value to them personally and professionally? That's certainly part of it, is to get to know the individuals. It's a people business. At the end of the day, you want to be able to understand what drives and motivates individuals. That's really helpful in building trust along the organization. But the second piece of it is really understanding, when I spoke about working with individuals outside your organization, is getting to the point of understanding the interplay. How does that part of the organization work with the other parts? What are they measured by? What are those specific metrics? Because then you can get an understanding of what are those levers that can be pulled potentially to drive more effective results, more efficiency, and better collaboration across the organization. So that level of openness and communication is absolutely critical in being able to understand the landscape of the organization. And how do you map that ultimately to your vision, to your strategy, so that you can make sure that everybody is striving towards the same ultimate goal and results?
So it sounds like each decision you make reinforces both the team's strength and your strategic direction. You're saying what you mean, and your actions consistently back it up.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I hold myself very accountable for things I say and do in an organization. I think that is really a great way of modeling behavior. I think that eventually trickles down to other people believing that they have trust and that the organization and leadership has high integrity. But I also think, to the same degree, everybody should be accountable within their individual roles. A team is only as effective as how they pull together to be able to accomplish things. So it's important to be able to hold people accountable to what they say they'll do. Certain organizations, and I'm in sales and go-to-market, so it's very metrics-driven. Certain organizations like that, there are specifics that you measure on, whether it's quota or revenue or targets or KPIs. So those are really easy to kind of figure out, how are folks doing. But I think also it's important to dig into why things may not be working. A good example of this is if you think about territory alignments or people that are underachieving. It's very easy to blame it on underperformance or sales execution. But we have to take a look at some of the realities. Maybe the territory is wrong. Maybe the quota was set wrong. Maybe there's issues with certain customers in certain verticals. It's important often to step back from the business and analyze it from a different perspective and look at a lot of the other factors that could contribute to some of these issues. And I think that's really important as you go through the process, because it not only gets you a better understanding and the pulse of the business, but it also gives you a great perspective, what I refer to as voice of the field, what's really happening with your customers, with your partners. That level of communication understanding is really critical so that you can feed that data back into the business and make the necessary changes to improve.
Oh, David, this is such amazing leadership philosophy.
Thank you.
It's so rooted in the clarity and communication. You've got the inclusion, and then you're, of course, always weaving in the integrity of it.
Well, I think it all goes back to the communication piece. Often organizations make decisions and they don't share the reasons why, which can be a mistake because, it's not really the information that's shared, good or bad, that creates the biggest problem. It's if you don't share the reasons behind it or the why. People are uncomfortable with getting mandates or actions or told what to do when there's no real reasoning behind it. It's almost like, I think about my children, sometimes you do have to say things and not give a reason why, but I think it's much more effective when you give a reason why. Part of it too is people want to feel like they have a good understanding of why leadership's making those decisions. And some of the decisions are hard. But at the end of the day, leadership has the responsibility to make decisions that are in the best interest of the organization as a whole. But I think it is also important for that leadership team to be able to communicate and articulate these things in a way that you build confidence and trust in the organization. Along the way, that's where people see the level of integrity, the level of openness and communication, and it continues to layer on trust in the organization as a culture. And then I believe that bleeds out to the rest of the organization where people feel this is a culture of openness, understanding, explanation. Hard decisions may be made, but there's a reason for it. And we take that information, we process it, and then we move on in a positive way. And that's the most effective way to be a really good leader and build great culture.
So in your experience, when you make these subtle shifts, do you notice an immediate change in how the team communicates? Are people more open? Are they more willing to share? What's been your experience in that aspect?
I think it's important to really, when you come early into an organization, to articulate very clearly the reasons why. On a personal level, why you joined an organization and what do you see as the reason why this organization can be successful, and start to really explain strategy, both tactics and more strategic initiatives, so that people can understand that there is a method, there is a practice, there is a way to get things done, and be able to install those as part of a cadence of activity. I'm a big believer in establishing kind of frequent communication, updates for the team, collaboration sessions, feedback sessions, as I mentioned, voice of the field. Those things in the early days build a tremendous amount of goodwill in being able to lay the groundwork for what is an open, collaborative, understanding organization that you can do great things with. When you have the right culture and the right motivation and people that are really energized by great leadership, you can do some phenomenal things. And that's really important. Some of the mentors I've worked with, we often talked about this hearts and minds. How do you connect those two together? And it's important because I think you need to, as a leader, be able to come in and do some difficult things, but also be able to articulate very clearly the mission, the strategy, the overall end goal for where you're headed to as an organization. So that's probably, the first thing. I wouldn't call it the only thing. It's hard to kind of identify, but these are layered things that start to build trust and really start to build some great interactions and relationships along the way. And often those folks that you build those with will be lifelong business partners, peers, and colleagues.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. I really thank you so much for, giving us more of an insight into the real workings of strong leaders and what is needed today. Well, it's time for our listener questions. So, David, I hope you're up for this one. We're going to throw it over to you today. We have a question from Tyler in New York, and his question to you is, what should I look for in building my sales team?
Great question. Thanks for sending that in, Tyler. I think when you start thinking as a manager or a leader and hiring and identifying great cultural fits, it's really certainly important to figure out how to align them to your objectives as well as your organization's culture. There are probably some key characteristics and building blocks. What I look for in individuals is certainly a high degree or sense of urgency, I call it. The phrase I use is, if I've got to wake someone up in the morning to have a sense of urgency about, doing the job and kind of going out there, that's a bit of a challenge. Now in sales, it's very interesting, because sales is, you do get a lot out of it based on how much you put into it. So it is a kind of different mode. And then other parts of the organization, certainly are measured a little bit differently. But you certainly want to have that energy, that ability to kind of say, you know what, I'm here to bring great ideas. I'm proactive about what I'm bringing to the table as part of this team. And that's really the second piece of it. Are they proactive? Are they bringing great ideas from either their previous roles or things that they're reading about, things that they've seen other businesses do? These great ideas often come from individuals in organizations that are not at management and leadership levels. The organization's willingness to listen to those folks from the bottom up is really important. It feeds into some great ideas that eventually become, things that could be game-changing in certain organizations. But it's in the same vein of, when you come to your manager or when you bring a concept to your leader, don't just come with a problem. I'd always recommend come with a solution as well, a couple of ideas that may be able to kind of change the dynamics. And lastly, which certainly not by any means the last piece, but integrity is a big piece of this. How do you build the right integrity in an organization? Is hiring people of great degrees of integrity and trust, and the ability to work with people that are what I call really good people, just character people that you would want to continue to build organizations and be as part of your network of folks that you would even bring along in your career. That's really critical, because I think organizations that have that collaborate well together, they communicate well, they trust each other, they do feel part of a bigger initiative, vision, strategy, and I think that's really critical when you're looking for people to bring into your team.
Well, Tyler, thank you so much for your great question. And I really wish you the best on your journey in hiring that team that I'm sure will be absolutely fantastic for you. Well, David, this has been a great conversation on leadership. I've seen people walk through fire under your leadership, and that doesn't happen by accident. It certainly speaks to the integrity and clarity you bring to the way that you lead.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining Build It Baby today.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I just wanted to take a minute and just wish everyone such a beautiful, happy holiday. And thank you so much for listening to Build It Baby. Huge thanks to David Roth for taking the time to share. If today's episode spoke to you, tell a friend, tag us, or drop a review. We'll be back next Tuesday, same place, same mission. And at the end of the day, remember, leadership isn't borrowed, it's built. And just like everything else worth having, it starts with you. Always best, P. Build It Baby is a Rainy Day Production House original. Hosted by Penelope Bent and produced and edited by Morgan Clymer. Music by Yuri Shemshashin and Oleksiy Holobiev. If this episode spoke to you, please follow the show and leave a review. It helps more dreamers like you find us. And remember, you're not just building a bold business or a career, you're building a bold life.